with Tilde. I'm Tilde Guajardo, the founder of Womanars, and I'm really excited to have our guest today with us. Hello. Let me get it together real quick, because I have like 3 or 4 things running around in my head of what to say, and
I know what that's like.
Sometimes it's just like, So
That's awesome. Welcome to my world, audience.
That's great. I love it.
So I hear Dave on one side, and then the other part of me wanting to say something else. So anyway, welcome to this episode of Tuesdays with Tilde. Today we've got Leana Delle, who we're going to be interviewing, and we're going to be talking about how to be the author of your own story and just to go write it, and what she means by that. So I'm really excited to have her here. I want to remind you that if you are watching us live, please feel free to ask any questions, to post any comments. Let us know if you're having a problem hearing us. Dave is going to be monitoring the comments and letting us know if you do have any questions, even though he doesn't know it yet, but he is monitoring.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah.
He's on it.
Oh, look,
So please interact with us as much as you'd like. We welcome your comments at all times. Also, if you like the content that you're seeing, please share it with your audiences and your friends. And don't keep us a secret. We'd love to have a bigger audience and get your feedback as well. If you have any ideas for shows or people that I need to be interviewing, please private message me and let me know. I'm open to hear your suggestions. So without further ado, Leana Delle, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited. I'm excited to be on this show. I love Tuesdays with Tilde, so this is an honor. Very
well,
pleased.
thank you. Well, I had a blast with you and Mike doing your podcast.
Yes.
About a month and a half ago,
Yeah.
was it? Or a couple of months ago? So that was a lot of fun. And I just want to tell the audience how we came to meet, because I think it's rare.
Yeah.
That something like that happened. So Leana actually reached out to me via email and introduced herself to me and said that we had some things in common, and asked if I was open to talk over coffee.
Yeah.
Which I mention that because a lot of times we hesitate.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
about, and then we think, well, they're never going to respond, or, so talk a little bit about that process for you. I mean, what was it that resonated with you about me that helped you to kind of push through and email me?
Gotcha. Well, I just love what you're doing. The Womanars website, I was on there and I thought this girl is doing some really, really cool stuff. And we're looking for people to interview. You're always open to great suggestions and guests. And I thought this woman would be awesome for our podcast, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. But I can tell you, in my experience, and this is part of the piece about writing your own story, is hesitation is an enemy. It can just rob you of some really awesome opportunities. Anytime you second guess yourself, I think people should always listen initially, because I got this little, man, you know what? She'd be a really cool person. And she is a cool person to know, let me just add that. But she'd be a really cool person to know and a cool person to have on the podcast. And if I had done no, you know what? She probably doesn't want to talk to me, or she probably doesn't have time for coffee or whatever. That hesitation can talk you out of a lot of really cool opportunities.
Right.
Because I think when you get that whisper, that you need to listen.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is when you doubt yourself, it automatically delays your life.
It does.
And the movement forward that you need to be creating continually. So when in doubt, push through, because usually doubt, it comes from a place of fear, right?
It does.
And for me, we either are operating out of love or fear.
Yes.
So when you doubt yourself and you're delaying something, you're actually keeping yourself from moving in the direction that you're supposed to be going.
That's true. It's true. And I'm a huge advocate of pushing past the fear. I think that's key, because the only way that you build self-esteem or build the ability to move forward into steps in your life of things that you want to do is to impress yourself. It has absolutely nothing to do with anyone else, in my opinion.
Right.
You're not out there to impress other people, but every time you take a step and you think to yourself, I'm sure everyone's had a moment like this where they think, I did that. I did that.
Yeah.
And as soon as you've had that little conversation in your head, the next thing presents itself and you think, well, I did that. Maybe now I can try this.
Right.
And the
Right.
more you impress yourself, the more confidence builds up and the more you're able to move forward and follow that little whisper.
Well, and I think that prompting also is solidified in the reception that you get from the other person. I talked about this story a little bit, and I think it's worth sharing. While we're on camera, of the woman, we just did a TEDx event. I'm a local TEDx organizer here in Dallas for TEDx Turtle Creek Women. And the day before the event, I had a woman reach out to me and ask if I needed any more help with the event because she didn't have the funds to actually pay for the ticket, but she was willing to help in any way possible. Well, unbeknownst to her, another friend of mine had purchased a ticket and asked me to gift it to whomever I thought would benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I responded to her and I said, look, come as my guest. My friend just donated, a ticket for anyone wanting to see. And I think that proves the fact that everything was aligned,
Yes.
And she even wrote as in her message how she was pushing through her own fear, and her vulnerability in even asking me, whether or not it was possible to attend the event. And so she actually happened to be one of the most engaged and audience members for us, just really interacting with the speakers, with the audience. She was amazing, and we were all blessed to have her there. So that's just an example of why we get those promptings, right? And how things align. So back to you. Tell people a little bit about your personal journey and how you became an author now, and what your focus is now.
Gotcha. It's kind of a cool story. Of course, I love it because it's near and dear to my heart. But I was living. I'm an RN actually, and I was doing travel nursing. It's contracts that you do in various cities, and I was working in Nashville. And I met a woman, Jeunesse Aurant was her name, and we became fast friends. She was just a real character, just a great girl. And we'd known each other for about a year when she got diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So by the time she was symptomatic enough to see someone about it, it had spread to her lungs, liver, and bone. And she was at the time given 6 months to live. So it was pretty traumatic stuff. She actually ended up living for 3.5 years, which is an entirely different story in itself. But we were sitting around at one point, and she'd lost all her hair from chemo, and I was actually living in Dallas, but I was flying back at least once a month or once every 6 weeks and spending long weekends with her, and we would have this really major quality time. And we were sitting around a campfire one night having a glass of wine, and I told her some stupid story that made her giggle. And she looked across at me, and she had, when people get that look on their face, like in Oprah's aha or an epiphany moment. And she looked at me and said, "You're a writer." And I said, "No, I'm not." Because really, that was just not on the radar at all for me. And then she said, "No, you're a writer, and you have to promise me that you'll write a book someday." Now, she was dying. So what do you say? No? Yeah. I was just grateful it wasn't, "You have to promise to climb Mount Everest." Or something really dramatic like that, because, okay, writing, I can probably, I can take a class. But yeah, that was a really crucial moment. And I said, okay, I promise. Yeah. And it was a couple of years after she passed away, actually, that I worked my schedule enough. I travel for work all the time, and I took a writing class at SMU here in Dallas, a creative writing courses, several of them back to back. And I wrote my first novel, and I dedicated it to Jeunesse. And this journey that I've been on since then has just been amazing, the process of discovering a new part of who I was. And I don't know how she saw it. I don't know. Again, what if she had hesitated in saying that? Yeah. Think about that. Because she literally changed the entire path of my future in that one sentence. And I took those classes, and the minute I started writing, I just absolutely loved it. And I thought, this is just one of those amazing miracle moments,
Yeah. So Are you still working as a nurse?
I do trainings for a healthcare company now, and I write on the side and speak and have my podcasts and blogs. So I'm a busy girl, and I love it. I love everything about it.
So this is, for those of you wondering what the name of her book is, it's called Control Switch, and it's a fiction book.
Fiction, yeah.
It is fiction. So if you can't see it, here. It's, so tell us a little bit about the book.
Okay.
And kind of what was happening with you personally, on a personal level, that gave you the idea for the book as well.
Okay, so I'm in this class at SMU, and they was the first class of a novel writing. I think it was the fourth course, but she said, come back next week with a novel idea. And I thought, what? Next week? Yeah, because I was never somebody, I didn't think I was somebody with an imagination, although that's really been cultivated. And she said, and the big key with any successful story is there has to be a conflict. There has to be an issue going on. And I had just recently had a hysterectomy. And everybody kept saying, I was in my late 40s, and people would say to me, oh, I'm really sorry. And I'm thinking, why? Well, because you're never going to be able to have children again. And I'm thinking, and I'm 48. So anyway, I started to think about a character who would be younger than me, who that would really actually be a huge conflict for them. My character developed, and that's only really just a small part of the story. The character is Candace Bradford, and she's a life coach, and she's literally obsessed with control and staying in control. And she teaches people how to have 100% control over their life. And the surgery that she has kind of starts this spiral of several different things that just send her whole world off kilter, and she has no control whatsoever. And it's kind of the cathartic journey that she goes on as a result of that. That's why it's called Control Switch. So she goes from having perceived 100% control over everything to no control at all. And I think a lot of us struggle with trying to maintain 100% control. So it's kind of funny and kind of heartwarming, and it was just a real joy to write.
Yeah.
Just a joy.
So tell us a little bit about because I read your bio and went to your website and looked that over, and so your motto really is go write it.
It's go write it. Go write it came from the last birthday that I had with Janessa alive. I spent with her. She gave me an instructional book on writing because she hadn't forgotten that she'd made me promise. I hadn't started at that point, but it was Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott, which is a great book. And on the inside of it, she said, to my dear, dear friend Leana, go write it. Love, Janessa. So that is now my motto, and to me, it's a metaphor. It's not about the book. It has nothing to do with the book. It's about writing your story. It's whatever it is that you feel in your heart, that you're driven to do or whispered to do, that you may be putting on the back burner. Just do it. Just write it. Make your story the best story it can be. Right? You want to get to the end of the book with each chapter being a bit of a page turner. And a bestseller. Everybody's life can be a bestseller. I'm not talking on a shelf in a bookstore. I'm just talking your experience. Just go write it. That's my motto.
So how has go write it transformed your own life and the way that you think about life now?
Oh. I just get so excited about this stuff. I'm just a huge advocate of. The other thing is that folks have to remember is I was 50 when this book came out. I was 50 years old. So when my best friend made me promise to write a book, I was not in my 20s. This was a huge jump for me. And since doing this, again, this was one of those, I did that. I wrote a book, that made me think, what can I do next that I might want to do? Yeah. And it has really taught me the key thing in my life is that you're never too old to do anything, ever. I had a little whisper years ago that I would like to maybe jump out of a plane, and I did it this spring. I mean, I'm in my 50s now. I'm not 48 anymore. But do it. Just take that step and do it. Not everybody's going to have that.
Right.
Fears are subjective. one person may fear jumping out of a plane and have to maybe get over that fear. Somebody may fear actually going out to a restaurant and having dinner in a restaurant by themselves. A lot of people have a problem with that. It depends on what that fear is, but face up to it, and you're never, ever, ever too old. I won't, I can't buy into that.
Yeah.
Now, some things, if I was going to climb Everest, it would take a lot of training at this point, but
Yeah.
most things you can't hold yourself back. That's a mentality, and that can be gotten past.
So why do you think you didn't know to do this before, or didn't have the attitude that you have now? And it's not so much about the book, writing the book, but the attitude of just do it, mainly, is what you're saying. So what was it before the conversation with your friend, that kept you from knowing what it is that you wanted your life to look like?
Well, there's a couple of aspects to that. One is that when I was younger, it was music. I was really, I was a singer-songwriter, play guitar, had some videos. I'm originally from Canada, so I had videos that were aired across Canada. But I didn't have the self-confidence to pursue that passion and that dream. And so that ended up being on the back burner. I could still sing, but part of me is just too tired to lug my guitar around at the end of the day and write a book and do a podcast. And I have different priorities now. So when I was gifted this journey and I fell in love with the writing process, my mindset was, I'm not going to let this happen again. I'm not going to talk myself out of pursuing something that is really bringing me joy. And the other piece is, ironically, because I'm a nurse, it's not like I haven't seen people pass away at an early age. And I faced my mortality on a weekly basis in my job. But when I lost Janess, it really drove the point home. Because we were talking one day and she said to me, I don't ask why me, why not me? And it can happen to anybody. And I said, you're right, it could happen to me. And she looked at me very seriously and said, yes, it could. And it was like I was gobsmacked. For some reason, it just really hit home that, wow, this really could happen. It's not like I didn't know it, but just the reality of her situation. I thought, I could have another 40 years on this planet. I could have 4. Am I going to spend it watching The Bachelor on TV? No, I'm going to actually make some effort. I'm being sarcastic, but it's part of my nature. I'm going to spend that time.
You're never too young.
Never too young to be sarcastic.
Or to be on the
Well, that might be stretching it. The senior edition. You never know.
That could make money.
Some nice silver foxes
That could
on there.
make money.
Yeah, there could be a whole. Hey, now we're talking.
A Womanars production.
Yeah, a Womanars production.
Womanars production. I want to be the first Bachelorette. That's all I ask. But yeah, it could be just 4 years. I want to spend that time having quality relationships with people and doing the things that genuinely bring me joy and really listening to those whispers.
Now, because you're now focused in helping women do that.
In particular.
In particular, women over 50.
Yes.
Right? So what do you think is 1, 2, 3 things that are holding women back that are over 50 at this point in time?
Well, one is definitely the idea. We are in a very youth-based society. Western culture is very youth-based. We have it slammed in our faces all the time that we should fix our faces, that we need to change who we are, or that being older, we're discounted in society. Don't buy into that stuff. Just don't even listen to it. I don't even buy women's magazines. I don't buy them. I don't look at them. I don't want to see the articles. I don't want to. Cosmopolitan should be. I'm going to get myself in trouble now. I better just chill here. But I'm all about just not letting that stuff get in your head about being too old. The other thing that happens, I think, is that women in this demographic, they have been married and have children. Their kids, they have empty nest syndrome. A lot of times, relationships are ending at periods in their life in their 40s and 50s that they thought they were going to be in forever. And all of a sudden they're left with who am I? Who am I? Well, don't just ask the question. I think that's what happens is you sit down and you fall into the trap of the sedation end of what most people do in this society. It could be drinking too much wine. It could be watching too much TV. It could be eating too much food. It could be all the things that we do to try and hide from what exactly we're feeling and going through and trying to find ourselves, instead of actively going out and trying to find ourselves.
Right.
Like, I don't care if it's a knitting class. I don't care what it is. Whatever it is, it's a baby step. And you have no idea what that's going to branch into. But sitting over here, you know exactly what that's going to branch into.
Right.
So I think that's another key piece in it. And I really believe that it's important for us all to try and, as women and as women in this demographic, to continue to support each other and to help each other rise above and be a good example for each other. We've spent our whole lives being good examples for kids and good examples for our families. We need to be a good example for each other and just raise the bar for people who, and it's never too late to start. Like I said, I was 50 when this thing came out, so.
So who has inspired you the most?
Oh, it was definitely Janess. Janess was, she was an incredible personality, and there was absolutely no stopping her. Even when she got diagnosed with cancer, there was no stopping her. She was writing a children's book, actually, that sadly she didn't finish, but she plugged away and plugged away and plugged away. And she just had an incredibly positive spirit. Even in the face of imminent death, she knew she was going to die. She was a trooper and has influenced my life in a major, major way.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
Well, the world is my oyster. I'm by the end of this year, I will have my second novel finished. So that's exciting for me.
Can you give us a little
hint
about what it's about?
Well, it's about a woman. It's about, who knew? A woman who has empty nest syndrome, and actually her kids are teenagers. Her kids are teenagers and are at that point where mom knows nothing, and she's stupid, and she'd been married to the same guy forever, and she's just lost and has no sense of who she is. And she goes on this amazing journey of self-discovery that is just really cool and brings her full circle. There's a lot of interesting things that happen in that story and a lot of interesting characters. I'm not going to give you any more than that.
Well,
so there. But it's cool. And I just finished a TED Talk, so that's TEDx, so that's going to be broadcast. It'll be on YouTube, I guess, in a couple of weeks. It takes 2 or 3 weeks, I think, for that process to come through completely. So that'll be on there.
And you spoke at TEDx Mountain View College.
Mountain View College, yeah. And I'm open. I love to speak. If anybody's looking for speakers for their upcoming events or workshops, I'm available to do that. And I have a podcast that I do with my good buddy Michael. And that's a lot of fun if anybody wants to be on a podcast. We don't have the cameras, we just have the voices. So. But Tildy was on the show and she rocked it.
Oh, thank you.
And
that was a blast.
It was a blast, yeah. It was a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. So we're going to bring Michael on, and so that you guys can meet Michael, because believe it or not, Womanars is not just for women. We like to feature men who support women, and well, Dave is kind of
Dave is kind of what?
Dave is kind of a woman.
Don't let the saggy man boobs fool you, folks.
Womanars men too.
Yes. So we're gonna bring Mike Matthews on with us so that you guys can get to meet him.
Mike Matthews. So we are.
This way.
Oh, you're gonna I'm out of the picture now, am I? I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
Golly.
So we are.
It's harder to work with than you are.
We gotta we gotta tell you where this podcast came from.
Yes, because I want you both. I was gonna ask you, but I decided to bring him
bring
on
Mike
so that
in. Mike
you
can
could
tell the story.
Tell the story.
You look a little short there, Mr.
I know.
I know.
Here, let's get the poor guy in.
Let's
A
get
booster.
this guy
You need a booster.
Booster
He's
seat.
sitting at the adult table for the first time.
Oh, you want to?
Actually, we
Yeah,
all
we all
there
have
you go.
one.
Oh, this is much better.
Now you guys know the secret. We all have boosters.
That's right, we do.
Okay. All right.
So welcome,
Welcome.
Mr. Matthews.
Podcast co-host.
Yeah.
Welcome.
And tell us the name of your podcast.
The Matthews McGuire Show.
Yeah, he's Matthews and I'm McGuire.
Yeah.
I know I'm Leana Delle, but I'm also McGuire. It's confusing.
So, and I fell in love with you both because it's such an unusual podcast and a pair, right? So, tell the audience how you guys met and how you came up with the idea for the podcast.
Okay.
And what the podcast is, well, Matthews and McGuire, right?
Right.
Okay, but tell them the premise of the podcast.
All right, we met at Toastmasters. Big D Toastmasters in downtown Dallas. We meet every Thursday. Yeah, they meet every Thursday. Okay, and we were lined up to talk to a lady named Tamsin. And Tamsin, she owns a small business that caters to speakers. She helps them get booked. So we both were lined up. We both had the idea of talking to her about possibly launching our speaker careers. And she looked and said, "You all have the same questions. You might as well just talk to me together." and then when we started asking our questions and stuff, Leana looked at me and said, "Hey, you want to meet for coffee?" The same deal. How are you all met? Apparently, coffee dates.
Coffee, yeah, all about the coffee.
Yeah, all about the coffee thing. So we met for coffee, and we would meet every Sunday. Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would meet every Sunday and talk about our goals and what we need to do. We started off as accountability partners, and that worked out well. And I think she looked at me one day and said, "Why don't we just do something together? Why don't we work together?" And we was like, "What we work on?" And then I had a thought in the back of my mind. I wrote in one of my journals, about a year and a half ago, that I wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't want to do it by myself. Mm. And I didn't even think to even pursue it at that moment.
Yeah.
And when she said that, the light bulb went off, and I said, "Let's do a podcast." And her first thought was,
I said, "What's a podcast?"
and then I said, "Oh,
Never too old.
You're never too old to learn.
And then I said, "Oh, okay. So let me, how do you explain that? What is a podcast?" So,
It's a radio show without the radio.
so I explained the deal to her, and then she was all for it. Leanna's just all for it.
Yeah.
From jumping out of an airplane.
I'm all in.
She's all in. You explain it to her, she gets in, and she's for it. She's a daredevil.
Okay, and why I think you guys are so unique is because of the age difference.
Right.
Right? So tell people a little bit about that and how that plays into your relationship, your friendship, and obviously your partnership with the podcast.
Right. Well, we part of this came from, we'd be in Starbucks having our accountability meetings, and we would get into these really interesting conversations about stuff, and both of us all fired up and excited. And people would start, they were literally like leaning in.
And then I would tap her and say,
I think they're listening.
She said, "Yeah, I see them."
Yeah, so that was part of the podcast thing too. But initially, so our podcast is based on diversity. We want to reach a large audience and close a whole lot of gaps. So it's not just age that makes us different.
Wait. I don't see it.
You don't see it?
Okay, you see the resemblance? Okay.
Yeah. Is that your son?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I think I'm only 3 months older than his mother. So, yeah. So I am. But yeah, so obviously, and even our backgrounds, because I'm from Canada. I just slapped my mic. Sorry, folks. I'm from, Dave's going to kick me out now. I'm from Canada originally, and I grew up in a little town that had 9,000 people, and it really was like a Norman Rockwell painting. And Mike's from inner city DC with a single mom. Like literally.
It's totally different back
and our ages. And the fact that millennials, and I'm a cusper on boomer and Xer.
Right.
Millennials and cuspers can actually get along and have a lot in common and meaningful dialogue and learn from each other. Sure. I think that's another thing that's really important, I believe. For anybody that's watching this who's in our demographic, don't shut yourself off. Two thoughts cross people's minds. One is, I'm too old, they're not going to want to talk to me. Right. Or those kids don't know anything and I don't want to talk to them. Right. And both are wrong. Yeah. They both are wrong. You're just shutting yourself, you're shutting out opportunity. This guy is amazing. I learned so much from him.
And I learn a lot
all
from
the time.
Yeah. I know. I sometimes I even forget that I'm talking to Leana. Sometimes, I say things and she's like, "What does that mean?" And I'm assuming that she already knows what that means. So we educate each other all the time.
All the time.
But it's so much fun, and I feel like that's a big problem with this world today. It's like we're so segregated on all aspects of the board, and you miss out on key learning opportunities. It's serious growth on the table that people leave just, I guess, not giving in and wanting to feel comfortable being around people that look like them, think like them, act like them, and
boy,
it's
what
just
a
a
waste.
sad thing.
It is a sad
It
thing.
is.
So
that's our
what
goal.
what has been your biggest lesson that you've learned in, and not like a bad lesson, but just lesson learned, with working with Leana?
Working with Leana?
Has she opened your eyes to something new, something different?
Yes, she has, and I think there's a whole bunch of them. But it's like, you know how you speak a certain way and you think, when you're around people that look like you, think like you, walk like you, talk like you, we assume that people understand what we're saying all the time. You know, so we have a lot of jargon, and it makes me further explain or be clear and get rid of the slang and things that I would normally not pay attention to if I was around someone that looked like me, think like me, talk like me, walk like me. But she challenges me.
Yeah.
And also a lot of my ideals. I think we get into a lot of conversations about different things, and I feel like what would drown down our friendship is if we try to hide what we really believe about certain things in order to find that common ground and then only stick to that. But we actually, if we disagree, we'll say it.
We'll say it.
And we'll get into a conversation about it. And that's how we learn. But I think my biggest takeaway is the sensitivity in my messaging. Men and women, we are different in that aspect. Some things we say things, like if I was talking to Dave, I would say it a certain way. Yeah. But I've learned to be cognizant of things that's coming out of my mouth and the way I'm saying things.
And just so y'all know, I've worked with Mike, and he's amazing. Tell people just briefly what you do. Okay. So they can kind of tap into you.
Sure. I have a digital marketing company. We focus on web development and also automated sales and marketing. And so I met Tildy on a podcast, and Leana actually promoted me to Tildy. And, he
hadn't said a word, and Leana told me that he was, pretty much an expert with Infusionsoft, which those of you that have even thought about Infusionsoft know what a nightmare that is to learn. So when she said he was an expert at it, I was like, oh, you're mine.
The angels sang. It was meant to be.
So, and he's been really a joy to work with.
Right. And Leana, me and Leana are really bad at self-promotion.
He promotes me all the time. He'll say, by the way, she's got a book. I'm like,
everywhere we go, if we were in a conversation with someone, I say, oh, do you read fiction books? Okay, cool. Then I start talking about her book, and she'll just look at me like.
And I do the same for him.
Yeah. So tell people how to contact you guys for the podcast.
MatthewsandMcGuire.com is the website that we have, which is in the process of, we're going to switch that up at some point and make it really super cool.
And who are the guests that you're targeting?
We target pretty much anybody that has a positive message for the most part.
Because our audience is very diverse. So we just target people with the story that, just any type of value to give to the audience.
Awesome.
And that are doing amazing things.
Sometimes we just do episodes with him and I, because we get wound up about stuff and have some pretty entertaining conversations.
And I win all of the battles.
No, he doesn't.
Every single one of them. The battle with the sexiest one, I won.
You're going to lose this one too. I'm just saying right now. But we do have a lot of fun, and it's any topic or anybody that's interested in coming on the show. It can be from business to relationships. We do a lot of relationship. People love the relationship stuff. Go figure.
Yeah, I'm not sure
but
why.
It's fun. And then he's Carr Matthews.
Yes, Carr Matthews Group.
And Mike C. Matthews.
Oh, Mike C. Matthews on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere.
And Leana Delle. And LeanaDelle.com. So I'm at Leana Delle on social media too. But the podcast thing has been pretty awesome.
It has. And you know what? People contact me all the time and they ask me, how do you all interact with each other? Like they think we're two foreign species or something.
I know.
I think it's
two different languages.
And I think
completely.
It's so weird. I'm like,
well, yeah, you drink a little Geritol.
I'm like, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's it. He's like, what's Geritol?
I'm like, first
me.
Look at each other. The second key to success is talk to each other. The third key to success is don't judge each other. I mean, try to understand each other. I mean, it's very simple things. I don't.
Yeah, we learned all this in kindergarten.
Right. Play
and
nice.
We're wide open.
Play nice.
We had my dad. We interviewed my dad on his 80th, and he was a hoot. So we're all about just everybody just realize that they're all people.
Right.
Yeah. Inclusiveness,
You know, like
not
Exactly.
exclusiveness.
A little snow on the mountain doesn't mean there isn't stuff underneath, and trees
Right.
under there.
Well, thank you so much for being on Tuesdays with Tildy.
How
Really
fun.
appreciate you guys
Sure.
coming on and sharing a little bit about how you met and what you're trying to do with the podcast, because I really enjoyed being there and meeting both of you, and look forward to the new book
Yes.
and to more interviews and
Sure.
continuing to work with Mike on deciphering Infusionsoft.
For sure. And I love this woman. I fully support what she's doing. So
Yes.
if you're watching this show,
Ditto.
take a minute, go share it with your friends. Please do so, because what's happening is a lot of us that are doing positive things, and no one loves to share positivity. I don't know why, but it's a lot easier to share that video, that hateful video, or that funny video.
Yeah.
But she's making real impact right now.
Huge.
And, take your time, just 2 minutes out of your time, to share this video with a friend and post it on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and all those other channels, and let her know you appreciate her, because
Thank you.
she's spending
Give
her time
Tildy.
and Tildy,
Yeah.
we appreciate that.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
do.
I appreciate you saying that, Mike. Thank you.
Mike's
I know
supporting
Mike's-
women.
Yeah,
Dave's
Mike's
crying.
supporting women, and he works with a lot of women. So
Yeah, I do.
call him, and he
For
dresses
sure.
really sharp too. So.
He's a sharp dressed man, this one.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful specimen.
Oh. Thanks, Dave.
That was awkward, yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
So thank you everybody for joining us. And like Mike said, if you like what you're seeing, please
For sure.
share it with your friends and your followers. And also you can tap into us on our YouTube channel, our Womanars YouTube channel, and you can help support us by going to our Patreon page as well, patreon.com/womanars, where you can actually donate to help us continue to do these free inspirational and educational webcasts. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.